Dude, I talk about this all the time when I do lessons with people. Like a very I think underrated way to improve is to literally.
Hey guys, welcome to the Industry Sec podcast where we interview high caliber artists and discuss all things music marketing, branding, social media, production hacks, productivity hacks as well. So all things in regards to that. If you are a music producer and you're looking to level up in all those areas and you want to eventually get to that stage of becoming a touring artist, then be sure to subscribe to our channel because we have these very often and you don't want to miss out on this high level content in regards to leveling up in those areas. That being said, today's podcast is our very first podcast and it's with a very special guest, Jiqui. I've been friends with Jordan for a couple of years now, ever since he started his project way back when he used to send me tracks for feedback, and the amount of effort and motivation that he's put into his project has been an exponential rise in his career. He is now touring all over the world and collaborating with some really high tier artists like Company, Phase One, and many more, and releasing on all sorts of high tier labels like Disciple and whatnot. So Jordan is an amazing human being. He's absolutely killing it, and I was really excited about doing this one. We cover all things in regards to his workflow, how he gets so productive and finishing more tracks, as well as his production hacks and what his origin story was from where he was to where he is now. That being said, I hope you get a lot of value out of this one, a lot of insight, and I'll see you in the podcast.
Thanks so much for joining me here, Jordan. Been wanting to do this for a long time now. This is going to be like the first podcast for Industry Set, so really excited about this one. So
Yeah.
what I just wanted to really start off with here is kind of like how you got into production originally.
Yeah, totally. I think my story is probably similar to a lot of people, but I was over at my homie's house one night. I think that this was like literally back in 2012, and he showed me Skrillex, Scary Monsters, and like as soon as I heard it, it was like instant. Like my first thought was like, I need to learn how to make this. So then I ripped FL Studio on my mom's laptop and then just started like learning how to use FL. And like obviously after he showed me Skrillex, I started like diving in up by myself, like listening to like UKF and just really getting into dubstep. And then, you know, like if you go out there on YouTube, like there'll still be some like 2012 Jiqui tracks on there. They're so bad though.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's funny how many people have that same answer, that it was Skrillex that was the first thing that got them into production. Like there was nothing before that.
No, like as soon as he showed me, it was like instant, like fell in love with it.
So what was this? Scary Monsters and Nice Rights, or
yeah,
right,
that was the track. And then I started going down the rabbit hole, like just listening to like a lot of like I used to be like really into like melodic dubstep too, like the old like I guess not even really Flux Pavilion, but like Excellent, like guys like that, Seven Lions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was really into that for a while, and I wanted to make that. I made a few tracks, but it wasn't really my thing.
Yeah, it's funny.
Like for making it, yeah.
Yeah. My thing was I saw this video of Dead Mouse playing Ghost and Stuff, Rob Swire, like that track, at this venue on YouTube. And before that, the only thing I'd ever seen was like hip hop. Like that's all I knew at that time, like in high school. And this was like very generic, like 50 Cent, Lil Wayne and stuff like that. So like me then seeing on YouTube suggestions of like this guy wearing a fucking mouse helmet and playing all like this beat boop music was like the craziest thing I've ever seen. So that's when I went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I never got to like actually experience, because I also believe like if you're not like fully into dubstep, like seeing it live would probably change that a little bit. But like I always loved dubstep and I didn't get a chance to see it live until like I think 2017, 2018 was when I went to like my first festival. And that's when I saw like Excision played there. I think Excision was really the only dubstep artist, but I was super hyped for his set. And that was like the first time I got to experience it in like a live setting. And it made my love for it like so much more.
Yeah. And so like after you originally, so that's when you got into production, but like how long did it take before you kind of had that conviction and confidence that what you were making was like, oh, this isn't too bad?
I think it was kind of around that time, like that I went to the festival. Like I basically like I had kind of stopped producing for a few years because I was still producing off my mom's laptop at the time, and like her laptop completely like like the hard drive corrupted, so I lost everything, and I was still in high school, so I was like, oh, I don't even know what I'm doing anyways, so it's like, whatever.
Mm.
But then once I went to a festival, I was like, okay, I need to pick this back up because I want to like it just kind of like reinvigorated the love for it. And then so I went out, bought a new MacBook, like just went like all in, basically like dropped out of school too, just to like focus on it. And then
Oh shit.
yeah. It took me probably like after I started picking production back up, it took me about like 6 months before I was like, okay, I'm done with school. Like I wanted to focus on music.
And so was this like high school or like like
This
university?
was first I did 2 years of university.
Yeah.
So second semester of my second year, I just stopped. Like I
And
was
so
like,
what did your parents think about that? Like you just dropping out? Were they supportive or
yeah, well, like I didn't really tell them it was because of music. I just said like I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, which is true. Like
yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, I just want to take like a year off of school and like work and save up money and then maybe go back to school. But like that wasn't really my plan. Like I just wanted to focus on music.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then I just started focusing on music. Obviously, I was working like full time as well, but I was just like, my only thing was music.
And so how long
And I guess, sorry, I didn't even really answer your question, but
yeah.
like they were supportive of it.
Yeah.
Like they were like, yeah, if that's what you want to do, like, because obviously school's expensive and shit. So, you know, I was just like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say how long until they did started supporting you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. So they were pretty supportive of it, but like, in terms of like music, like, you know, they're pretty supportive. Like they've always kind of been like, you should do what you want kind of thing. Obviously they like I used to play basketball really seriously, so I was kind of getting pushed in that direction, but I also love playing basketball.
Yeah.
But once I started like I said, they were always supportive, but once I started having more like videos of people playing my tracks out, me playing shows and stuff, they were kind of like, oh yeah, like they started to like understand it more. And like now they're like, they've always been like fully on board, but they came to actually and saw me perform at Bass Canyon this year. That was like
Oh,
their
that's
first
sick.
time like seeing me perform or being at like like I guess electronic music festival and stuff. So I was like kind of nervous. I was like, oh, I wonder like what they're gonna think, because probably see some pretty crazy stuff, but they loved
Mm.
it. So it was sick.
Yeah, that's sick. That's very wholesome that they were still supportive through and through. Because
Yeah, totally.
it can be hard for like that generation to understand what it even
Dude.
is.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine like, obviously I would still do it like regardless if
Yeah.
my parents supported it or not, but having their support like definitely makes things a lot easier, especially when it comes to like making big decisions and like, like obviously I'm from Canada, but I live in the US now, like having their support like in making those decisions and
Yeah.
making those transitions easier is like it's been super huge.
Mm.
So I definitely like am super fortunate to have that.
Oh yeah. And so like at this stage, like you've been a couple of years in, you're going all in, dropped everything, there's no plan B, all in. How long was it and what was it that was kind of like the defining moment that where people started like kind of talking about you from your productions?
Um, I would have to say like there was a lot of things that contributed to that, but I think one of the biggest things for me was Excision and Millennium opened their back-to-back at Lost Lands. It was like I believe it was their first back-to-back, and they opened their back-to-back with one of my tracks. And like I was in this like department store in Canada called Winners, and like as soon as that happened, like my phone just started like exploding because it was obviously live stream too, right? So it was like my phone was blowing up. Everyone was like, "Yo, this happened. This just happened." Blah blah blah. And as soon as like that happened, it was like there had been a few things leading up to that were pretty big, but like that was kind of like the tipping point, and there was just a big domino effect. Like I started like getting a lot more artist support, bigger labels like wanting to release my stuff, and also that went hand in hand with my production quality like increasing a lot.
Definitely. Because I always say to all my clients, and I talk about this a lot on like our TikToks and reels and stuff, that like artist support is like the ultimate leverage point because the moment you get it, everybody changes their perception of how good you are. But it's like
No, exactly.
it's funny how hype is as well. It's like it's not how good you are, but it's how good people think you are at like a short amount of time. So it's like you're getting
Yeah,
all this, like, I mean, that's the defining moment right there of like when you started getting hype,
totally.
because it's like you're getting like bulk different art supports, and like your releases are
Yeah,
getting bigger and onto bigger labels, and it's all happening really short amount of time, right?
yeah, yeah, dude. And that was even like one of the very first things, like even back, like way back in the days when I was learning from you and stuff. Like one of the biggest things I learned was like artist support is huge. Like, and once you
Hmm.
like get that, like, I once saw somebody say like, no, the biggest thing is carving your own lane. But like, I don't think that's true at all. Like, I think that's a really hard thing to do, especially in
Hmm.
the industry nowadays. Having that like cosign from some of these bigger artists, like, because people pay attention to that. Even me as an artist, like if I see like a clip on my feed pop up, something like, yo, shout out like Excision for dropping my track,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm gonna click on it and watch it. So it's
exactly.
like, so it's like,
Yeah,
especially with dubstep, like you need to have that like artist support, I think.
yeah. So that association, you like you automatically know that that track is of that quality, because if XYZ is playing it out, it's like, well,
Yeah,
no
exactly.
brainer. It's no brainer. It's like
No,
worth
exactly.
listening to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
exactly.
definitely on the same page about you on that. So what would you say like after that, are like an even bigger career changing moment? Because obviously that was like the initial stage of when like you started getting hype and everyone's like, oh, who's this guy? He's coming up everywhere, he's showing up everywhere. Was there like an,
Yeah.
would you say there was like another phase after that? Was that kind of took you into like, I guess, like the touring aspect of things?
Um, I think like that aspect wasn't necessarily a single moment for
Yeah.
me, but I dropped. So for me, COVID like really gave me a chance to like work on my craft because in Canada we were really fortunate to have like it was called EI, but it's basically like a money benefit from the government. And if you lost your job due to COVID, or like, with our job, they were basically like, oh, so you can either go off of work and get paid, or you can stay at work and still get paid. And I was like, well, obviously I would prefer to
Yeah.
like not work so I could focus on music. So that's what I did. And I got like, where I'm going with this is I got a black label EP, and then I got another black label, RIP to Never Say Die. But I basically got in with Never Say Die. And that
Hell
was a
yeah.
huge moment for me. So I originally had a black label release with Tracy before COVID on his EP, but then I got my own EP in like September. I think it was like 2 years ago now.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this week's podcast episode, then be sure to check the link below in our description. That's going to take you to a page where you can download some cool resources that's going to help you improve your productivity, your production, your workflow, your marketing, your branding, your social media, and you'll also be able to join our weekly free advisory group calls in the Industry Set group. So if you want to take advantage of those things, then click below and I'll see you soon.
Yeah. So
That
like,
was like,
so through that opportunity that you saw with like, were you saying it was like a government kind of thing, whatever? Was that?
yeah, it was basically like you had to fill out like a questionnaire every two
Yeah.
weeks, like answering if you're eligible for it. And
Oh
then
yeah, we have that here in
uh
Australia. It's like called Centrelink,
yeah,
or like I mean we have like government grants and stuff for COVID and stuff like that. I even did
yeah,
that during COVID,
yeah.
but because I just kept getting COVID like 3 times or something. Um,
Dude, yeah.
but like I guess that was like your first taste of full time music, essentially, right? Because like I mean
Yeah,
you're
pretty
just
much.
full time music.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I did. And like I just basically like took advantage of the time and just like tried to like learn a bunch of new shit. Like, because I just had this time now that I never had before to
Hmm.
put into my craft. So I just like I was in my head, I was like, I'm never really gonna get a chance probably again in my life to like have this much time
Yeah.
and freedom to focus on it. So I was like, I need to go all in on this.
It's not even, I feel like it's not even just the time. It's also just being able to like commit that much energy and focus to just one singular thing. Instead of like
Yeah,
waking up and
dude.
being like, oh, I've got to do work today, and then I've got to come home and do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I've got to spend time with wifey and shit. So it's like
Yeah.
just being able to just focus on that complete tunnel vision focus. I feel like that's also
Yeah.
moves the needle forward as well.
Yeah, totally. It's just like there was nothing else I had to worry about. I mean, obviously there's stuff I'm worrying about, like COVID, all the stuff going on, but I was like, I need to just stay focused because I don't know
Yeah.
how long this is gonna last. I don't know how much time I'm gonna have, but obviously like as of right now, I got a lot of time. So
But how long was that whole period for where you got to essentially like live working full
mm,
time in music for?
I would say probably like 7 or 8 months.
That's
So
solid. Yeah, shit.
yeah, it's solid. But like there was always the option to like go back to work, like if I wanted to, but I was like, no, like I just wanted to stay doing music. I mean, obviously I feel like anyone would, but then so once that started happening, I basically got booked for some shows once COVID like was getting better and tours were happening. So then I started getting like show offers, and I also signed with an agency, AB Touring, and they helped me get my visa approved. And then I just basically like my girlfriend lives in the U.S. So as soon as my visa got approved, I just moved down to the U.S. with my girlfriend because it's way easier for music and my relationship and just like overall like quality of life for what I'm doing is way easier down here.
Hell yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So I also have another question because I've got some students that were also asking, wanted to ask you some stuff as well. So
Yeah.
one person was asking, with your knowledge and experience that you have today, if you were to start over from scratch, what would you do differently?
I would make sure, like, if I had all the knowledge right now, I would make sure that when I was picking my artist name, I picked something that I knew I could brand easily around, something I was passionate about. That's really my biggest regret is like I started this so young and so early that, for me, the word Jiqui is just like some random made up word, and it doesn't have a lot of meaning to me, but I guess it's like a kind of catchy name, and it's the first thing that shows up on Google, so it's not all negatives, but for me
Oh
just
yeah.
something like I could put a little more passion behind.
I mean, I personally feel like the name doesn't matter too much. I feel like as long as it's catchy and memorable and hasn't already been taken, like, I mean, my name
Totally.
Axon, that it literally means nothing. It's literally just my name without the J.
Yeah,
And
I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I
and
feel like, yeah, no, I totally feel you. I just like being able to like bring ideas to the table for things. And with my name right now, I sometimes struggle with it.
yeah,
And then I get in my head about it and go down like the rabbit hole of being too hard on myself.
yeah. I feel like as long as like a good theme that's behind a name, that's all that really
Totally.
matters. Because like
Yeah.
mine's Axon, but it has nothing to do with robots. But like because the branding's so strong, like people already
Yeah.
associate it
Like
as
that's what I
robots.
think of when I hear
Yeah,
your name, and I can just picture the
yeah,
visuals with it too.
yeah. Because before it was Axon, it was super cringy. Like in high school, my DJ name, this was just DJ because all I did was like DJ. It was DJ ACKSON. So if you move, I moved
Oh, if
the
you move the
J.
J over it,
Yeah,
yeah.
so cringe. And then I was like, after high school, I was like, well, nobody has DJ in their name except DJ Khaled. And I'm like, I'm not that guy. So like, I'm getting rid of
Yeah.
DJ. And then it's just ACKSON, which is accent. So yeah,
No, that's funny. I mean, it's
super
still kind of the
cringe.
same name, just better spelled.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So another question as well is like, what would you say is the best way to collaborate with other artists? Like, let's say artists that are
Oh,
bigger than you.
yeah, that's a really good question. There's a lot of things that kind of go into it, but for me, something that has worked for me a lot, is, you know, obviously like staying on top of your social media. But for me, like anytime an artist that I loved or respected or loved their music would follow me on social media, I would basically like hit them up and just ask them if they have a place I can send them some demos to. Like I never just like hit anyone with a SoundCloud link, like because some
Collaborate.
people. Yeah, I always just like ask someone if they have somewhere I can send some demos to, and
Yeah.
then I send them my unreleased. And then I was at a point when like a lot of people were asking me for stuff, so that helped. But like just putting myself out there and then showing people, I guess, that you're kind of consistent. I guess like if someone downloads a bunch of stuff, I would kind of have like another batch of songs ready to go,
Hell yeah.
or like almost ready to go, so I could just keep sending people stuff. And then eventually through that point, like you just kind of start to develop relationships with people. And then it's just kind of like obviously like nurturing those relationships, because at the end of the day, like, you know, everyone's just another person in this industry. Like, yes, those people can help your career, but also like being able to make like friendships in this industry is super important too. So, and then a lot of the time, like after evolving those relationships, I felt comfortable enough to insert myself to ask for a collab, or a lot of the
Yeah.
times they'll ask too. It's just kind of like being able to read certain situations and like if you feel comfortable or not. Like it's
Hmm.
kind of a tough answer, but like I feel like that's what you have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of people, they make the mistake of not following what you just explained, and they just go from asking if they can send them music, and then like a couple of days later they say collab.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would never just hit up an artist like that's much bigger than me and send them my own release, and then if they like them to just
Hit
like
them with the collab.
immediately
Yeah.
ask for a collab. But you know, sometimes like when that happens, if you send someone some stuff and they really love your stuff, like they'll just instantly ask you. That's what I've
Yeah.
noticed has happened too. Like some people just don't like to waste time. Like, you know, even for me, like if someone will send me some fire demos, like, and I want to collab, I'll just be like, yo, like, you want to work on something?
Hmm.
But I never try to like push someone into doing something, you know? Like if if yeah, you just got to be able to read the situation, I guess. That's really the best advice. But you
I
want to
feel
build
like
those relationships.
I feel like it's sometimes different for every genre as well. Because I know, like, well, at least from my experience, I feel like in dubstep, a lot of the time, other producers, well, in bass music in general, I feel like a lot of producers are more open to collaborating with other people if the sound is good, like if it's unique and actually good sound design. But I feel like other
Yeah.
genres, there's a lot more like politics involved, where it's like, how many followers do they have? Am I going to get something out of this? Is there going to be like a label that I can get on with? Like, obviously, people have those kind of like outlooks as
Yeah.
well in the same industry, but
Hmm.
I feel like it's a little bit more open ended with like bass music. People are a little bit more like wanting to just work with other people that like make really good sound
Yeah,
design kind of
totally.
tracks.
And that's how it should be, in my opinion. Like, I think if there's an artist that you like, and I don't like, I mean, you know, obviously some people think differently, but it shouldn't matter the followers. Like, you know,
Mm,
if you make something super dope and we could create something sick together, like, why not? You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like, but you know, I understand like the other side of things for some people, but for me personally, it's like, you know, if you make something dope and you're like making stuff that I love, then I want to work with you. And I also
yeah,
love learning from other people too. Like I always learn new shit when I'm working with people, and like, you know, learning new shit gets me excited.
yeah, awesome. So also on that note, how you were talking about before about having like a large amount of tracks at any given time, basically for like when you're sending music or whatnot, for any kind of opportunities. So in terms of that, how would you say you go about with like finishing such a high volume amount of tracks? Is there like a certain workflow that you have that you would say that has been essential in you getting to that point of like having so many tracks at the ready?
I think I just got super comfortable in Ableton and like found some stuff I love using. Like I like reusing stuff in different projects, but like modifying it. Like obviously, like I don't like to just use the same sound every time, but I love saving racks and saving stuff. So like I'm constantly saving stuff, even if it's like a 4 second idea, like I save everything. And then I just drag those things into like my current sessions or you know, whatever I'm doing. And I'll do like big sound design sessions where I'll export like 30, 40 sounds at once. Then I'll use those for the next couple months. Or even like I have one sound design pack that I made like a year ago and I still use it all the time because I just like the sounds are super easy to manipulate. Um, but just like getting comfortable in your workflow, learning how to work efficiently. And also another thing too is I kind of moved past the point of feeling like every single thing I had to make was for a release. So if you can kind of get past that, because a lot of people I know like feel like everything they make has to be ready for release. But I have so many tracks that are never going to come out, but they're fully done. And at some point, you just have to be able to move on.
Yeah, sick. And would you say you have like a, I guess within that workflow, would you say there's like a checklist that you almost go by like religiously for like finishing a track? Is it like, oh, I've got to check these 4 or 5 references, I've got to check on this plugin, I've got to do this and that, XYZ.
Surprisingly enough, like I feel like a lot of people use reference tracks. I hardly use reference tracks myself. Um, but like I like to mix as I go along and I'm very thorough like as through the writing process. So usually by the end, I'm just listening to the track like a million times and then just checking to see what I need to change. Because usually, like by the time I'm done writing, I'm almost done mixing.
Right. So just completely mixing as you go, and then like I'm assuming by that point, like the mastering phase is pretty much good to go because you're just mixing straight into it.
Yeah, most of the time, like on my master, I'll usually just run a G clip, but I'm also doing that a lot in my mix down process as well. Like usually for my master, I have to do close to nothing.
Yeah, sweet. And so within that as well, would you say that what's like a usual day as well, like in terms of like, are you writing like in a every single day kind of thing, or is there like only a set amount of days per week, or
Honestly, the past few weeks I've been just kind of burnt out, so I haven't really been doing a lot of work. But like when I'm in a really good creative headspace, I'll usually write every single day. Like even if it's just sound design, or if I'm not feeling like working on something that I have started, I'll just start a new idea. Even if it's like nothing, even if it doesn't turn into something, I just try to like practice like doing something.
so if you don't feel fully creative in terms of like tackling a whole track, you just go about making like a specific thing.
Yeah, I'll just like try to make something in a very specific style, or I'll just do sound design, or I'll look for new samples.
Yeah. So like one of the things I talked to a lot of my clients about, and I've talked about this on my TikToks as well, is like essentially like isolating problems. So like in regards to batching, I think I told you about this on a previous call as well, about how if somebody had like a bottleneck in terms of like something they struggled with, let's say like they struggled with finishing more build-ups, they would make like 5 build-ups, and each build-up would be a reference of like another artist. So like they'd
Yeah,
re-engineer a build-up of that artist's sound, and then as they're doing it, they're able to like see what those parts of that is actually slowing them down. Because when you're writing a track as a whole, like you don't actually notice what's actually slowing you down. You kind of just like keep writing because you know
no,
you get
dude,
that tunnel vision focus, and you don't even like realize that's what's going on.
I talk about this all the time when I do lessons with people. Like a very like I think underrated way to improve is to literally take one of your favorite tracks and just try to recreate it. Like
Mm.
even if you don't even get close, like try your best to recreate it as close as you can. And then it's basically what will happen is what you said. And then you're also gonna like be able to pick up on little stuff that you're listening to in the track and apply that to your own music. And then in turn, you'll apply it to your future productions and stuff. I think it's like a really underrated way to learn like song structure, just like sound design, or like anything. Like it can help with anything.
Yeah, awesome. That's yeah. I think re-engineering stuff is like a really good way of like hyper learning. And then the other thing I think is like feedback as well, because like if
Yeah.
somebody's like coming to you, let's say they're coming to like your Patreon and like getting you're giving them feedback on a like consistent basis. Like
Yeah.
I feel like the reason why feedback is such like a hyper learning thing is because with production you only get better when you start to be able to hear things differently. Like you can only can start to notice things you didn't notice before, because
Yeah,
I feel like
totally.
it's like it's every couple of years that well, throughout my production career at least, I noticed every couple of years I started to just notice things that I didn't notice before, and just notice that what I was making before was just shit in comparison. Like you just look back and you're like, oh, why was I doing
Yeah.
that? Like you just like there's just even frequencies that you just didn't even recognize that was like something that was there. Like this is like in the early phases, obviously, but
Yeah, totally. No, feedback is so huge. And if you're not open to it, then you will not progress quickly at all. Like
yeah.
you have to be able to take feedback. And I don't even really want to use the word criticism because I feel like it kind of has a negative connotation, but in a sense like criticism,
Yeah.
you have to be open to it. But obviously there's a point when if you're just saying, oh yeah, this isn't good, that's not feedback. Like feedback is like, okay, you could probably change this and here's like a few reasons why, instead of like just trying to you know, you want to try and help the person like problem solve and tackle the areas that need work.
Yeah, and on that thought, as I was saying before about like your Patreon, for example, something that I push to like everybody that I work with is about like growing a Patreon, because I believe that a Patreon is like one of the more effective ways of going full time with music, like prior to even worrying about the touring aspect, because it's like
Totally.
you know that you're going to get that reoccurring money every month. So like if somebody was like had a full-time job or a part-time job, it's like as they're growing that Patreon, that's that recurring revenue, they can start to deduct those like part-time hours until the point where the Patreon kind of takes over. And so
Yeah.
from your experience, like how would you say that the Patreon has been really helpful with like helping you go full-time as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was doing music full time before Patreon, but I also was playing a lot of shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Patreon, like I've been doing it for a few months now, and it's definitely been like it's a learning process for sure. Like, running everything a specific way and just figuring out like what you're gonna do for your tiers and stuff. But for me, it's been really fun doing it because what I do is I plan out the content 3 months in advance. So what I did was I planned all my content till the end of December. And then I basically just spent a couple weeks like getting everything ready for those months. And so basically, while I'm touring, like I can just dump because I dump content on there every Monday.
Mm.
Just do content every Monday and it's already ready to go. And obviously if I want to make changes to anything I can. But just having that like while I'm touring, it's been a really nice like way to supplement some income.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got one more question as well, because I like to do this for every podcast, is what would you say is like your top 5 plugins that you're sitting on at the moment?
Top 5 plugins that I'm using right now would have to be Endless Smile for sure for reverb. It's like I use it more than any other reverb. I don't know why, just the stock preset when you load it in,
Good to
it's
go.
so good.
Yeah.
So good. I use Soothe too a lot. That's a classic. Melda bundle, the free Melda bundle is insane. I've been using the wave folder distortion a lot lately. Um, Trash 2 is another one. And let me see what else. I use a lot of stock Ableton, honestly. Um, I know I already talked about Melda, but the Melda frequency shifter too is like goaded.
Yeah, sick. Yeah, man, thanks so much for your time here. This has been really great. I think there's a lot of ground we've covered here in terms of not only like the defining moments of your career and like what actually got you to the next stage, and not only like the productivity hacks and also like the mindset and whatnot. So like that's kind of like what we're trying to push on all these podcasts. But yeah,
Yeah,
really
totally.
appreciate all your time, and hopefully we can do
No,
this
thanks
again
for having
soon.
me. It was fun. Yeah, dude.
Awesome, man.
Appreciate you.